everybody. Welcome to a brand new episode of Spiritual Spiral. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We hope that your week wasn't as shitty as mine. I hope it was fantastic. I'm your host, Sam Davidson, of course, joined by the amazing Sari Cohen. And guys, we have the third reunion here of Mary Ternovsky, who is a great friend of the show, great friend of ours. If you haven't seen her episodes, go back and listen. But she is basically a crystal expert, a lithotherapist. She does everything almost in the spiritual world, but specializes in crystals. So how are you doing, girl?
Hi there. How do you do?
I want to add just incredible human to that because I feel like that sums you up, Mary.
I know.
Thank you so much, Sari. Thank you so much, Sam. I'm very happy to be on the show once again.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity that we have right now to talk about what's happening with us spiritually, what is happening in the world, and hopefully we can provide a lot of useful tools today within this next 40 minutes.
And there's so much. I mean, just to point out, we are all over the world. I'm in California, Sam's in Ohio, Mary's in Germany right now, so we really have our bases covered, ladies.
Yeah, and we talked about this before the episode started. These are historic times, and they are going to continue to be historic times. I'm sure a lot of you have seen what's going on in Germany on the news. Can you tell us a little bit about what's going on there, Mary, and especially, spiritually, like the feelings that you're getting being there?
Well, Sam, you chose the right word. It is historic. What is it today? 31st of August, 2020. Germany just had the major event over the past weekend, that ended up in demonstration that grew into not violent protests, but the police and the forces in Germany being very violent, not especially physically, but in the way they portray the events of this past weekend, and the way they describe the type of people who were participating in this demonstration. Just to remind everybody, it was a demonstration of mostly predominantly professionals, very educated people, lawyers and doctors, and people who just suffered immensely from the economic downturn, resulting in people losing businesses and losing their jobs after the shutdown that the German government kind of imposed in March and April of this year. And just to answer your question, Sam, what is happening right now, and we're going to dive into it today because it pertains to all of us. What is currently happening is our inner programming. All of the baggage that we have been carrying all of these hundreds and hundreds of years, and by that we mean not only the information that is stored in our prefrontal lobe, but also morphogenetic field that surrounds our DNA. All of this information is being pulled up right now onto the surface and reactivated. So I think thorough analysis of historical cycles is something that can really help us to understand what is happening right now and to predict to a certain extent our future.
Interestingly enough, I mean, talk about things being connected. We're seeing it over here where history is repeating itself. We are in a huge civil rights movement, and you're almost seeing what went down this weekend over here, very similar to a civil war. I mean, there's an uprising happening now.
What is happening? Can you give me like some highlights of what's
people are killing each other. There are two sides to this country, and it's like pure tribalism. You're either on one side or the other, and people have had it. They have hit their limit. You know, this is going on in the middle of a pandemic where numbers, especially in California, are rising, are going up, you know. So it's like, you know, it's you're either aligning with things or you're not, you know. It's everything kind of feels like it's spiraling, and it's hard to center. It's hard to find a center right now to put all of this energy, or to know where the energy is coming from, how you're feeling, or whose energy you're taking in.
And to add to that, Sarah, you know, what also is happening is, I feel in the past, you know, yes, there's Republicans and yes, there's Democrats, but unless you're a radical person, you can typically understand certain points of the other side. And, you know, oh, okay, and you could have a friendly discourse with someone that has opposing political views as you do. But what's happening now is that, you know, if you like Trump, you know, then you're the worst person in the world. Like, if you don't like Trump, then they think you're the worst person in the world. It's like there's no middle ground anywhere. You're either so right that you don't want to acknowledge anything wrong with what's going on, or you're so left that you are deaf to any positives that are on the other side. And it's just, yeah, it's causing a great deal of fight among people. And I feel very much, you know, kind of, I'm go more left than right, but, you know, I see both sides of certain situations, but I'm the minority 100%. It's really crazy.
So you're the minority because you are currently in the state that has a certain history, and this history helped the descendants, you know, the people who live in the state right now, to survive and thrive. And we are now talking about our inner programming. We're now talking about our inner beliefs. And you would be amazed to what extent our own belief system consists of beliefs of our great-grandparents or the population, the people that we are surrounded with. If we look back into the Civil War in the United States, you know, if you analyze the South and the North and how they acted, just imagine this girlfriend of mine. She lives on 57th Street in Manhattan, so the best area, and she's now scared to leave her house. Few months ago, it was possible. People would meet, people would look at each other, and they would embrace each other. And that is back to you, Sam, exactly to your question. Why is it? What exactly did happen right now for people to look at each other, you know, as if they were enemies? What happened there? And what happened is this activation of historical memory that we have stored all around our energetical field. It's all energy, it's all physics. And then we have the activation of morphogenetic field that contains the memories from our ancestors, and biologically speaking, they are there for us to survive and act automatically in certain situations, kind of like, you know, fight or flight situations. That's where our memory will be activated. And so now it's all in place, and people are not in 2020 right now. People are not in 2020. They're in a different century. And it's very interesting. The historic times are now different everywhere. So we have the Civil War. Let's be honest, everybody. We have Civil War starting right now in the US. To a certain extent, we can prevent this from happening, or we can just go along with it, which I think what might happen, due to the fact that not everybody works on themselves, you know, it's not like everybody sitting there meditating, clearing all of the past trauma out of subconsciousness, but they're actually living their life, and they're just reacting, you know, having knee-jerk reactions to things that happen. And then as Sari, Sari started like this very, very interesting conversation about what is happening in Germany right now. Because if we have the Civil War in the United States, we are having very interesting times right now in Europe. And I'm very curious to find out what genetic code, genetic memory in this case, would win this battle, because it's really a battle. We just had some absolutely atrocious, absolutely horrible laws being introduced, something that hasn't been done since 1933. And we all know what happened in 1933. Hitler just came into power, and now we are unfortunately witnessing a lot of similarities. But as we all know, and you, both of you being journalists and working as journalists for so many years, you know how important our language is. So what German government is doing right now, and a lot of German officials and all of the layers of population who want to be adherent and who want to belong to this circle, they're using very interesting name calling, labeling techniques that we haven't seen since 1960s. It's very, very interesting.
Tell us, I want to hear about the labeling, because we did speak a little bit about the armbands, which blew my mind when I saw that.
As you all know, I have been studying crystals and lithotherapy. Litho in Greek language means crystals, stones, and therapy is healing. Crystals have the ability to scan our past and future due to the crystalline structure. That is just, beyond the physics that we currently have here, the laws of physics that we have here in place. And I saw actually labels for people who would be vaccinated, not be vaccinated, this and that, being implemented in Germany in November 2020. I'm sorry, I have to say that. I'm not sure if our episode will be taken down after that, but maybe in November. We still have some time. And I was wondering, how is it possible? And now the government is introducing, or not introducing, but suggesting, to people who cannot, for health reasons, medical reasons, not wear masks, to mark themselves and wear something on their clothing that would set them apart from the rest of the society. This is one of the techniques. And when it comes to language, because our language is our heritage, the American English with beautiful writers, that is something that we can carry through and draw our strength from. And if someone manipulates just slightly the linguistics and the language that we speak, they can control the way we think. So now we spoke about propaganda. Remember that a few months ago we spoke about propaganda and how important it will be in the upcoming months. So now we're having this period of time where propaganda is being introduced to such a large extent where people don't really know what they were thinking last week, because all of the things start, shifting around.
What's an example, would you say, of propaganda that we've seen recently? Like, is it commercials? Is it politicians speaking on television? Like, what do you think that looks like right now?
Imagine 500,000 people from all around Germany, professionals with at least 1 degree, 2 degrees, hardworking professionals coming to Berlin, which is already, the city has so much history. They had the wall, they had the DDR, the East Germany, the West Germany, they had the separation, they had the Soviet army and the American army entering Berlin in 1945. Before that, they had the rise of the Nazis. So it's already loaded with all of this memory from the past. And now people from all over Europe were actually coming there to say, hey, maybe we should be peaceful, maybe we should look into some of the regulations that are in place right now and rethink this. And they're actually very peaceful. And now divide and conquer. Now, the old structures that are in place are trying to hold on to the power that they have. It's obvious that it has to be a second lockdown, because someone has to take responsibility for the economic downturn, the downfall that will follow that. And it's better to be the virus rather than mismanagement. Mismanagement. Let's put it that way. So the system is trying to make everything tight, and now they're introducing expressions like Corona-Leugner. In German, that means the virus liars. Or they would introduce language as Rechtsextremisten, right extremists. Or they would call people, highly educated people, Nazis. So now everyone is trying to play the same card on each other, with the only difference that the government has the military power and the police behind them, and a lot of ways of manipulating population that is rapidly losing jobs, rapidly losing income, rapidly losing financial security. And I think we are standing right now on this crossroad. I'm talking about Germany, where Germany will either revert to Goethe, Wolfgang Goethe, and the great wisdom of German philosophers, and would draw their wisdom from that source, or they would revert to really Nazi Germany, where everyone will be reporting each other and basically, to this miserable state of, oh, it's better to be my neighbor and not me, therefore I'm going to report him or her. That kind of nasty behavior. So Germany is really on this crossroad where the country would have to pick, this or the other way. And just to finish this long speech, I want to say that unfortunately we see this radicalization. Imagine a lawyer, coming and protesting and then being called a Nazi by the government. What's going to happen to him? He's probably going to get radicalized and say, you know what, screw you guys. So this is what we're seeing right now currently happening in this country.
I have to tell you, Mary, there is definitely a parallel to what is going on here. And I feel like I've noticed propaganda for several years and terms that have been coined, that have been thrown out, that people are now repeating, things like fake news and socialists, and it's something that's thrown out and used in ways that aren't even accurate. They're not accurate depictions of what's going on, and it is causing radicalism. And that's why we've gotten to this point, this crossroads. To me, I feel like I see a light at the end of the tunnel. That's my own personal thing. I think all of this upheaval, at least what's going on in the United States, all of this unrest that's going on, I feel like there's just like, the civil rights movement that we had in the 60s, there's good that is going to come from this. We are awakened now in a way that we haven't been in a lot of years.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If and I'm not I'm not a supporter of this or the other party, but there is one thing that we have to thank the current president of the United States, is that he brought all of the shit to the surface. Because now we're talking about, how is it even possible? Now we're having a crazy cocktail of, Monroe Doctrine, civil rights movement, a McCarthy movement, the Civil War, South and the North, and the industrial part of the United States versus, another part. This is a crazy cocktail, and I think a lot of people have problems navigating through this, or they get really dizzy after drinking this cocktail.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think one of you ladies has visitors. I hope that these are very handsome guys with a bouquet of roses.
The house phone that nobody answers. Sorry about that.
Pick it up. You never know who's on the other line.
But to your point, Mary, I feel a little bit like when I was younger, my dad and my brothers would say, you have gullible written on your forehead, and I'd be like, how did that get on there? What? And I, believed, like, I was just so gullible, and I'm definitely an intelligent, open-minded person. And, I watched parts of the Democratic convention. I watched parts of the Republican convention. And I mean, I had to turn it off each time. I was so upset and disgusted, but there was something about each one that made me think, like, how stupid are you, Sam? How did you not know that, like, this was going on this side, or this is how they feel on this side? Like, I just felt nobody likes to be played with or fooled. And so I think for a lot of people that are actually really trying to dig deep and not just say, like, I hate Trump and that's it, and not just say, I hate liberals and that's it, that really is trying to, what's important to you. And April, one of our past guests and also good friend, one of the last things she said on her show with us was, you need to think about what good leadership looks like to you. And kind of manifest that from there. But, for someone that wants to learn and wants to know more and dig deeper, but also sometimes feels easily manipulated, how would you say you can help control that and know that your thoughts are your own and they're not being taken over by somebody else?
Wow, it's so beautifully phrased. I just dived into this atmosphere of division that you pictured right now. Well, first of all, let's think rationally. We always have these historical cycles. We always have this pendulum that is now moving away from globalization to individualism, right? Democrats right now want to keep the pendulum artificially in globalization, which is not possible anymore. Pardon me. It is not possible anymore because the cycle is moving backwards, and we should give credit to the Republican Party. They have been moving back when it comes to rebuilding factories, making sure that people are employed in the US, making sure that the United States is not really dependent on the outer forces that we were. Let's recognize this. And then we have the Democratic Party that has, they have many different ways and a lot of chances of winning this race. But we both, we realize that both parties are going to battle to the very end, because this is the last chance for the Democrats to win, because they know if they don't win, if they lose this election, they're going to be out of the game for the next at least 15 years, and they know that. And we also have the Republicans who know that if they are to lose this election, all of the past 4 years of development and building up the economy, the true economy of the United States, the independent economy, can be crossed off, like it's like crossed over, like it's like it never happened before. So we already know, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone who will be listening to our podcast and who is watching, none of the parties will acknowledge the fact that they lost.
Yeah.
So now we will find ourselves in a situation of both parties reaching out to the population, and whoever has the majority of armed population wins to a certain extent. Now, why are we even talking about this on Spiritual Spiral? You know, the famous show. If you want to stay out of the game and like not to be involved, just make sure that you have food supplies, make sure that you move out of big cities. If you want to participate in this or the other movement, just check what party has the most potential of moving the country as whole to the whole new level. And I think the whole world is depending right now on us. You know, if we recall history of Rome, the great Rome, the whole world was dependent on how things would play out in Rome. We find ourselves in the same situation, so we have a lot of responsibility on our shoulders when it comes to making right choices and right decisions. And Sam, you are so right. It's so easy to get confused right now because our morphogenetic field gets activated, and it's not necessarily that we hear our own inner voice. We might hear our great grandmother saying something to us. So the best tool in this case would be to constantly ask yourself, does it belong to me? Is it my feeling, or does it belong to someone else? I think that should be our mantra from now on for the next like several months.
Well, there's something going on that we were talking about, the 5D, that I feel like, explain that to people, because I feel like now is the time to align.
Yeah.
So I want to ask maybe both of you, how did you feel and what did you feel within the past few weeks? And you feel a lot. I mean, top journalists always feel a lot of things because this is their responsibility. This is how they portray the beauty of the world and how they, give it to the society. So you're the first people to ask when it comes to that. What did you feel within the past few weeks?
I've been really interested in this whole 5D, and it's funny because there's also this whole other thing about 5G, which is not what we're talking about. That's the whole Bill Gates craziness. We're talking about like a fifth dimension, and through our guests that we've had on this podcast, other podcasts I've listened to, learning about what that is and how as a human we only really have gone to like the third or fourth dimension, and 5D is full awareness. And I've been doing some research, and I've always had ringing in my ears on and off, but now that I know what that means, probably I don't think I have a hearing problem. I always said it sounds like someone, because when I was younger, my grandpa had hearing aids, and he'd always take them out and you'd hear that noise. And so then I would start hearing that in my head, and I just thought, that's weird, I don't have a hearing aid. So I hear that a lot. And through, meditating and again, like listening and podcasts, reading, I just feel, but I do feel anxious. I definitely feel very anxious. I feel a little bit volatile. Like I can be fine one moment and the next I'm, just kind of a mess. And, I do want to tune in and be on that frequency, but then I do get a little scared sometimes. I'm like, oh, it's too much. It's, I'm scared. So that's what I've been feeling and what I've been going through. And I do feel like this has been the calm before the storm again, which I hate. But it has been unusually quiet, I feel, lately. And I just feel like, uh-oh. And also from what some of our guests have told us too, that, you know, starting September, you know, these coming months are going to be pretty interesting. Right, Mary?
Well, Sam, before we dive into it, I want to say that this ability to feel things, it's not always necessarily negative. You are a writer yourself, and as you recall, in the Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, you know, the social instability, um, you can write and create only when there is social instability in the world. And there's so much of social instability right now. I think this is one of the best times to create and write. And you, as highly sensitive being, you can just go with it. And once again, coming back to our previous episode on Edward Bernays and propaganda, there's going to be so much of propaganda right now going on that people will try to find new means of expressing themselves. And I think we're going to have beautiful pieces of literature and beautiful pieces of art that we will remember, you know, in like decades. From now, we will be still talking about it. That would result from this time that we are going through.
Mm-hmm. What have you been feeling, Sarah?
Well, it's so interesting that Mary just said that, because I was literally talking to Sam yesterday, and that's exactly what I was telling her is create, create, create. Now is the time to create. I feel like now is the time to level up. There is something going on that, you know, again, we've been talking about this collectively all over the world. There is something going on, but individually, we are all being faced with obstacles. Things are being thrown at us, that lessons that we might have thought we've already learned, that we're being forced to relearn. You know, hey, I've done this before. I've worked through this before. I thought I conquered this. Why do I have to do this again? Fears that we're being forced to face. And I'm not talking about externally what's going on with the rest of the world, but internally, things that we need to work on ourselves, and being awake and being aware of that, you know, it's learning to fight through that. It is a time to level up. It's a time to challenge yourself. It's a time to do the things that frighten you and scare you, and step out of your comfort zone. Everything good that happens in life, everything worthwhile, comes out of doing something really hard. It's never the easy way, right? You never come out of the on the other end and be like, this was great, this was easy. No, everything worthwhile in life comes out of doing the hard thing. And I think that's what we have to do right now.
Yeah. And I mean, another question I do have for you, though, is for family members and friends that are not leveling up, that hear us talk about all of this stuff, and maybe that tune into the podcast. Oh, what have you been up to? And they're like, oh God, you know, you're crazy. You know, you're so creative. And that's just basically a nice way of saying that you're out of your mind. But like, how do we, you know, because I've tried to educate, you know, some friends and family, and sometimes they're like, wow, you really think so? You really think all that's true? I'm like, yes, like, look at what's happening. And so then, I'm sending articles to people. I'm like, look, see, what I said was going to happen is happening. This is happening. This is happening. But you know, you can't open someone's eyes.
Well, that goes back to ridding toxicity that we were kind of talking about at the beginning. How do we sift through that, rid through the toxicity, so that that's part of our leveling up? You know, we each have to do our own work.
Imagine the pie is getting smaller and smaller. So the competition for a little fraction of this pie is going to get fierce. That pertains as well to your energy. Ladies and gentlemen, that means that in hard times, and now Sari mentioned September, or I think Sam, you ladies mentioned September. From September on, we have Mars going backwards up until middle of November. That means that people want to act, but they cannot. And all of this frustration, rejection, and resentment is going to be inside. And it's up to us how we are going to work with this. The same goes, when it comes to our family members, they're going to try to reach out to us in order for them to be able to vent their frustration. They're going to try to call or write or come over for a meaningless conversation. So once again, I'm not sure if we talked about this. Let's give our audience a few signs of energetical vampires. Number one, these are people who talk about the past. So there are a lot of empty conversations that lead nowhere. Now we ruthlessly have to, cut through and say, I'm sorry, I have a phone call scheduled. I don't have time to talk about this. Second of all, these are people about whom you just don't feel well. After spending 5 minutes with them, you already feel aggression inside of you. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you are going crazy. That just means that your body reacts to their energetical attacks, and that your body is trying to reject and stop their energetical psychic attacks. So if you feel that around certain people, try to avoid them at all costs, And then once again, people who are trying to be comfortable, who are changing their opinions, who are trying to please you, and you don't really see any contribution or value, just words. These are energetical vampires as well. Yes, we do feel lonely. And Sam just portrayed, the state that a lot of Americans are in right now, because there's a lot of division and there's a lot of movement there. Some people are afraid to voice their opinions. Some people are very vocal and they get frustrated because of the rejection that they get from the outer world. And I say the only way to find an escape, the only way to find peace in this situation is to find like-minded people and to stop talking to people who do not support what you truly believe in. And it's just fascinating to me how much in denial a lot of people still are. And if they will be rewatching our episode in October or November of this year, I just say good luck, because the time to step out of denial was like 6 months ago, to be honest. And I think the last thing that would like knock the whole system off would be the fall of euro and some of other world's currencies that we're very used to and that we used to perceive as something very stable. That will totally set off like this mechanism of people going crazy.
Yeah. Well, the last thing before we let you go, I want to ask, what crystals specifically do you think are good to use during this time, and especially once September starts, that these months kind of get a little bit crazy?
For example, if September, September is going to be probably very difficult, but then we have also October and November that for some people in certain countries will be definitely a challenge. If they want to make sure that they are working with their trauma and that they do not absorb any of the outer energies, I would suggest black tourmaline. They can wear a lot of black tourmaline. If they want to find joy and if they want to strengthen their immune system this fall, they should definitely wear carnelian, because carnelian is very positive, it just gives you this positivity that we're all lacking once the sun rays are not there. And then for people who want to make sure that they're using this time efficiently, I would suggest something like lapis lazuli. And coming back to what Sari said right now, it is extremely important to use this time to create and to work on ourselves, on the way we think. So now, if you find yourself, and this is for some of the audience members who will be watching from Germany or from Italy, if you find yourself in some ugly lane to the grocery store in the middle of October with electricity shut down and no water, the only thing that can help you is to perceive the outer reality as a dream. So now we are reverting back to Buddhist teachings that are 2,500 years old almost. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. So now if the skills of disassociating with the brutal reality would be very important. If you find yourself in a very extreme situation, use your meditation skills. Meditate right now, dedicate at least 10 minutes every day of the week to meditation, and not just some flower power sweet movement, but actually, diving into your essence, going back to your roots, to your enlightened nature of your mind, and try to perceive this reality as a play of space, free play of space. That is the last suggestion I can give.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you? And you have a new book, right?
So there is first part of this series on immune system and crystals. The book is called Boost Your Immune System with the Help of Crystals. And there I talk about viruses and bacteria and what crystals would fight bacterial and viral infections. Mm-hmm. That is scientifically proven, serious work, very easy to read. You can find it on Amazon. Just Google Mary Ternovsky, Amazon, and the name of the book. Or Instagram, I think it's called Litho Consulting.
Yeah, awesome. Yes. And guys, don't forget, you can get a little mini reading on our show sometime in the future if you rate us on iTunes and leave a review, and then just take a screenshot and send it to us on our Instagram. At Spiritual Spiral Show. And then you can follow myself, Sam Davidson, at SamD43, and Sari at the Savvy Scribbler. And thank you again, Mary. We'll see everyone next week. Bye.
Thank you, Mary.
I just want to say that we are creating history right now. And you ladies are absolutely stunning in the way, I mean, if you monitor right now what is happening out there on the podcast scene, you're the only ones, who come up with very thorough and very interesting content. And I hope to see this, coming through no matter what happens in this world. And I'm very, very happy to be part of your project.
Thank you, Mary.
Love you.